Welcome back, everybody, to Game Time Live. The Nets and the Grizzlies are one of the games that we'll be talking about later tonight. But wow, have the Grizzlies been struggling. They've lost 14 of their last 20 after starting off 12-5. They take on the Nets, who have won 10 of their last 13, so two teams trending in the opposite directions. And you can see how they've worked their way down on the Western Conference standings. We have a lot of questions about what's going on in Memphis. There have been trades, there has been drama, there has been locker room fights, and we bring in our good friend who we can't think of a better person to bring in, especially when it comes to the dysfunction, as you were the one to break some news recently. Amari Sankofa. Amari, thank you so much for joining us and letting us pick your brain about Memphis right now.
No, absolutely. Happy to be on.
Okay, so we'll get to the locker room fight and all the drama going on there. But first, let's get to the news, which is the fact that the team acquired Bulls guard Justin Holiday for Wayne Sheldon and Marshawn Brooks, plus 2 future second-round picks. What's been the reaction, and what's your take on the recent move?
The reaction's been mixed. I think a lot of people are caught up on the 2 second-round picks, 2019 and 2020, which for a team that, as you touched on, has been on a downward spiral. They're 6-14, I believe, since Thanksgiving. Obviously, you don't want to lose any draft picks, but they did get the best player in the deal. Justin Holiday is a really good three-point shooter, which has been a weakness for this team. And it's a win-now move, which, some people may say that that's where this team should be doing. Some people may disagree, but they feel that they are a playoff team, and they were 12-5 at one point, so they're just trying to get back to that point.
Question, this is Steve Smith. We've had the scuffle we heard about, but from your vantage point, you've been around teams, you've seen locker rooms, and we've all seen this. Adversity happens. How have they handled it? In my opinion, just reading, I'm not there, but Garrett Temple spoke about it. He had accountability. JB had accountability. In your opinion, how have the Memphis Grizzlies as an organization and the players and coaches, how have they handled this adversity?
I think they've all been determined to move on from it. Garrett Temple, he accepted responsibility for his actions. Omri Caspi did the same. Garrett Temple, he did have a quote yesterday that kind of alluded to the fact that, every team that tries to win games, plays at a high level, they deal with. He estimated 75% of locker rooms at some point probably have some sort of altercation of that sort. And in this case, you have to address it publicly because it leaked. But it seems like everybody's on the same page. They're trying to move on. I guess we'll just see how they respond tonight after, something like that becomes known, and now you have to kind of face the world and explain why it happened.
Brendan Haywood here. Garrett Temple, Marquez, was it a real fight? Was it pushing? Because there's 2 types of fights in locker rooms. There's guys getting in each other's face, and there's actual punches being thrown, bodies being thrown around the locker room. What type of altercation are we talking about here, and how is the team responding? Is the team divided? Where do they sit with this?
Sounds like some punches were thrown. It doesn't sound like it was a fight that went on for an extended period of time. They were separated, but some punches were definitely thrown. And but something like that happens, you obviously question what that does to the team from a chemistry standpoint. This is a team that they've said all the right things throughout the season, just as far as making sure that everybody's on the same page, and they refer to each other as brothers. JB Bickerstaff earlier in the season said this is one of the best groups he's been around, and of course he is the son of a coach in Bernie, so he's seen a lot of locker rooms as well. They've said the right things, and it's tough to say how it's going to affect them, but it's a veteran locker room of guys who have seen just about everything. So you would think that if there's a team that can get past it, it's probably a team such as this.
Real quick, Amari, who won?
I don't know. I wish I knew. I wish I knew. I couldn't even tell you.
Amari, you follow that team. You know who won that fight.
Yeah, just say you don't want to say it, but you know who won.
Who hit and who got hit? Just tell us that.
I honestly don't know. I would say Omri Caspi has some reach. He's a little bit bigger. It's tough to say because they're both mellow guys. They're not the types of guys we'd expect to get into a fight. But if there's a tape out there or something, I guess maybe that gets leaked too. Who knows?
So earlier this year, when Draymond Green and Kevin Durant got into it, punches weren't thrown, but there was so much talk about how did it start? What were the words that were said? And of course, free agency had to do with it. How did this one start?
So it sounds like there was debate. Well, they had a team conversation, and guys were going back and forth, just talking about some of the issues that they had been having in the past few weeks and how you get past that. And Garrett Temple brought up some issues he had with the bench, just how they carry themselves on the sideline. And I'm sure it's something about how the bench has played as a whole, because that's been a weak point some nights. And Omri Caspi took exception to that. Garrett Temple starts, of course, and Omri Caspi is a bench player, and sounds like it just kind of escalated from there.
And then the last question we have for you is Chandler Parsons. He says he's ready to play. He says he's medically cleared. Clearly, ownership and the coaching staff has a different idea of when they want him to return. What's the latest and what's the update on his potential return and sort of the miscommunication that's going on?
Yeah, so Chandler Parsons has been healthy for the past couple weeks. And the team, he's been a healthy and active since then. He's, alluded on social media, some cryptic tweets here and there about how frustrated he is. And if you scroll through his Twitter likes, you kind of see the same thing. He's been liking a lot of responses of people who want to see him on the court. I think the difficult thing for the Grizzlies is figuring out what exactly he can bring to the team at this time. He did play the first 3 games. He didn't really shoot the ball very well. And then at the 4 spots, you have Jaren Jackson, who's been one of the best rookies in the NBA this season. You have JaMychal Green, who's been a really good backup bench player. Kyle Anderson's getting minutes at that position. It's just a question of how does he help the Grizzlies now? And because the Grizzlies are winning games, it's kind of tough to figure out exactly, where Chandler factors in. If he can shoot, he can absolutely help this team, because offensively they've had some issues, and it'll just be interesting to see how this progresses going forward.
Well, hey, Mario, it was great talking to you. Thanks so much for the inside scoop.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
All right, guys, so this sort of leads to the question of when you're part of a team with so much, it just seems like questions, movement, dysfunction, whatever you want to call it, maybe a little bit of everything. As a player, how do you get through that? And I would assume you look to your leaders. So who are the leaders on this team, and how will they get through it in your minds?
Yeah, and he said it best, and we see it. They have leadership. They have Marc Gasol. They have Mike Conley. They have J.B. Bickerstaff. Even though he's a young coach, he's been around the game through his dad, and I played for his dad, and J.B. was my assistant coach. So they have enough leadership. Stackhouse is there. They have a great coaching staff to be able to handle this. You have guys who play in the NBA who've been through adversity. Sometimes this brings you closer, and I think because they've had such a good start for this team that people didn't think they would be at where they are. Yes, they've been on a losing streak. When you start losing, frustration comes in. But I think sometimes I've been on teams where after a skirmish, Brendan, it brought us closer. It might not have brought the 2 guys closer, but it brought our team closer, and you go back to winning games.
Yeah, when there's frustration like this, it all comes down to your leadership. And when there's a fight, your leaders have to dictate how things are going to go on from this point. You can't have fights every day. You can't have that. Every team has some type of skirmish, yelling, shouting match that goes on in the locker room. That's just part of basketball. That's part of being a family. And being around each other so much, you're not going to love everybody, and sometimes those feathers are going to get a little bit ruffled. But how you handle adversity, how your leaders keep this team together is a true tale of what type of team you have. They have 2 very good leaders in Gasol and Conley.
You know what, Brendan, I want to go back. He asked a great question, what type of fight? And it's really because it's not whether we want to see somebody punching each other, but sometimes you have some pushing and some shoving.
I mean, get your hands off me, man.
And people say they had a fight in the locker room, right, Brendan?
Right now.
Sometimes there's a fight in the locker room was not even as intense as what you get hit in the games and rebounding. So sometimes you got to look at, you're going to have some disagreements. You're going to have some skirmishes. It might be not to elevation of a big-time fist fight, where sometimes you just might have some guys pushing each other and you holding each other's back. Nothing
pushing
wrong
hard
with
like
that.
this, right?
Yeah, they're pushing real hard. And,
like this?
Off the camera, we will see, Brendan.
You're trying. He will not get riled up.
Hey, Smitty, man, I love you,
I'm
man.
gonna kick his
I
shit
love
over
you,
here
Smitty,
under
but
the table.
you don't want that smoke, man. I'm twice your size, and I'm younger
I'm
than
okay
you,
losing.
You from Detroit.
But if I win,
hey, you from Michigan. I know how you get down.
But if I win, I'm
I'm
going to
gonna
win.
tell people who win, though. Like, I'm not gonna keep it a secret.
That's
like
my guy.
Lamar did.
I'd never fight Smitty. That's my guy.
Okay, you guys, I just can't let this go yet. You have such good insight into this locker room stuff. I mean, with all the years that you both played in the NBA. So I would love to hear a story or an example of how, like, a really bad locker room altercation led to bringing the team closer together.
Well, I've been on a lot of teams. We've had it.
You have one in mind, don't you?
We've had a lot.
I played for the Washington Wizards.
Look at that smile.
I played for the Washington Wizards in the early 2000s. We had a lot of turmoil.
I know you
I
did.
played for the Blazers.
You trumped me.
Okay.
You trumped me.
So, and it comes down to leadership on the court, and obviously, I think even more from a coaching staff, it's the guys that control the locker room, and obviously coaches and general managers. But it comes down to where you get it out, you get a chance to go out there and play. There's some guys that feel like they should be starting, some think they shouldn't. You get into a skirmish, and whether the fight or not, who won or not, it just settles everything, and you got to give a chance to play.
I think it also comes down to the guys. The guys have to let this ride too, because sometimes animosity can build up and it can still be there. You have to be able to let this go. I was actually involved in a locker room fight. Me and Eton Thomas fought on 3 separate occasions.
Who won?
And I won all 3, no question. I'm just letting you know. I'm for real. I won all 3.
Hey, there we go.
Of course you did.
But the thing is, it was never over, and it simmered, and it simmered for a while. And one day, I simply just waited for Eton. I said, listen, we're going to talk in the parking lot. I said, we're going to either talk and figure this out, or we're going to fight till we get tired because no one else is here. We're going to figure this out today. And sometimes you have to have the guys have enough maturity to come together. It took us 3 fights for us to have maturity to come together.
Right, so
it doesn't seem like Memphis is going to have that type of situation. I think they're going to come together right away.
Were people, teammates, coaches, whoever in the organization encouraging you to speak before that, and you guys just refused?
We were very immature.
No. Okay.
We definitely had meetings where management brought us in together, and we weren't trying to hear. We were immature young athletes that didn't know our way, very macho, egocentric, and it caused us to continue this feud when it should have been over fairly quickly.
And I will say, the best organization, best teams where you can move past is they keep it in the locker room. Yeah, we've heard about it, but it can't linger when everything's leaked in the media and everybody's talked about it. You got to come together, and most of my teams did a fantastic job. You keep it in the locker room, and that's how you move on.
How much does age and experience have to do with how long you hold a grudge? Like for a rookie to admit fault.
Age doesn't matter. It's your maturity. Because I know some guys that are 21 and are mature beyond their years. I know some guys that are 31 going on 13. So it really comes down to your maturity level and how you handle adversity. Some guys can't let certain things go.
When in your career did you reach your ultimate maturity level?
I think I was like 30 years old. In my 20s,
You're one of those late bloomers?
Yeah, in my 20s, I was quite reckless. I was quite reckless and immature.
I got 2 sides of me. I'm a good guy, bad guy. So, I've got there.
I've only seen the good guy. Fingers crossed I don't see the other side.
I see both sides.
All right, you guys. Tomorrow.
Hey, you had a fight?
Oh, actually, in high school.
Ooh,
One fight.
who
Yeah,
won?
never in college, though.
She lost.
Tie.
Hey, she said, oh, she lost.
No.
Hey, you see when she said, oh, she
No,
lost.
it wasn't. Punches weren't thrown. It's
Allie got knocked out.
We were on the ground like fighting after a ball, and then the refs broke it up, but nobody got hit in the face or anything, so it's hard to say who won.
She paused. She got
I
knocked
will
out.
pull your hair, but you.
Oh, hey, I ain't got no hair. I lost that a long time.
I would say I lost because I had to sit out the rest of the game.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, where'd it be?
There you go.
There you go. I kind of coded that over. You see how I did that?
I like that. We just had to get that in there.
All right, cool. So we have an awesome matchup
my
coming
fight.
up
She
tomorrow.
lost.
We've talked a lot about the West, but big-time game with the Raptors, who are fighting to be #1 in the East. We'll talk Bucks. We'll talk Raptors. We'll talk about the competition. For
Brendan,
the top
3-0,
spot
baby.
coming up.
Floyd Mayweather to win.
So this brings us into the conversation of just the stretch that the Rockets are on right now. You see how many people are contributing on their team, not just James like we talked about, but just a reminder, they're doing this with Chris Paul dealing with the hamstring injury, which I feel like is being overlooked.
Yeah, Ed, you're totally right. And now you got to give credit to Austin Rivers, who's kind of taking over the other ball handling duties and also other guys on their team. And I want to ask Brendan Haywood, because this is his area. We know Clint Capella's a guy who's great hands, dive, and dunk, but the numbers on the rebounding, that's not James Harden. Talk to me what he's done from the first couple of years to start to get these type of numbers.
I think the biggest thing for Clint Capella when you watch him, he's active. And you rarely see possessions that he takes off from a rebounding standpoint. He's always hitting the offensive glass. He's chasing the ball down. And I love rebounders that can rebound outside of their area. You played against guys like Kevin Garnett that were excellent at boxing out on one side of the rim and going and chasing the ball all the way to the other side. Those guys that are truly special rebounders, and that's why Clint Capella can rebound so well. He's a next-level athlete, and he has a really high motor.
And he keeps moving. And as a defender, do you want to chase a guy around all game and then into overtime? I mean, you have moments where you take breaks. And when you have an active player like that, that's when he can catch you just a few times a game. That can really make a difference. So James Harden, this sparks all sorts of conversation about where he stands as the best offensive player of all time and in the MVP race. And our own Roz Gold tweeted, she said, I asked James Harden if he consciously is hungry for winning another MVP. And he said, I need it. I need it for sure. And I'm going to get it.
I love it.
Love it.
You guys believe it?
I love it.
And obviously Brendan said it best, and we all know that when we were, talking our meeting. You got to win games to be the MVP, and so that means he has to understand that he's going to have to elevate his team to get back to at least 3 in the Western Conference to have a conversation to get there. And the numbers he's putting up, though, right now, he's jumped up to that ladder for me as #1 as of right now.
I love the comment. Now James does have a lot of haters. There's a lot of people that hate James Harden for some reason.
Well, I'm not going to lie. When he sits there on camera and says, you're witnessing greatness, how can you not tell they're watching greatness? And I don't want to misquote him, but I get a little bit put off by it. And I love confidence. I love watching Joel Embiid talk trash. I love that part of the game. I think it's so fun. But there is a part of his confidence that irks me a little bit when I watch it. It's just a natural instinct.
I don't think that it's all cockiness. I think he's tired of hearing about people talking about other things beside these numbers and the win streak. James Harden is winning basketball games, scoring 45 nights in a row, 35 or better, 9 nights in a row. That's incredibly hard to do. And all we have is some people that get up on set and talk about how many times he gets fouled, his usage, he dominates the ball. Guess what? Who else do you want to dominate the ball? If James Harden isn't shooting it, do you want Clint Capella creating his own shots? No, you do not. James Harden is playing great. His team is winning right now, and he says that because he's mad that too many people are taking the focus off the fact I'm playing excellent. I've played my way back into the MVP race, and all people want to talk about is how many times I get fouled. So I don't mind the comments, and I also think his comments about MVP get misconstrued. A lot of people think that means he also doesn't want to win a title. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Just because he said he wants to be MVP doesn't mean he doesn't want to be an NBA champion as well.
For me, he's getting fouled.
Yeah,
I mean, he creates the contact, and for me,
stop fouling.
The one thing is impressed me is, I've played in the league, you played in the league, Brendan, to be able to take that many hits and still have that much left to be able to knock down threes with that. You talk about a guy, even though he creates a lot of space, he's getting doubled, he's getting tripled. He has to beat his guy when he drives and beat the second and third guy. And to be able to do that and shoot 90, 89, 90% and also be able to carry the team, it's phenomenal what we're watching right now.
Well, it's one thing to do it now before the All-Star break. But as we've seen in the past, he runs out of fume late in the playoffs because of the usage, because of the hits, because of the amount of minutes. As a coach, as a teammate, as James Harden, how do you manage being ready and being elite in the postseason, but also knowing I have to carry my team out of this funk the way we started the season, and I do want to play at an MVP level?
I don't think you can manage it. The Western Conference isn't somewhere where you can say, hey, we're going to manage your nights, we're going to manage your reps, we're going to manage your usage.
Unless you're, in the past, unless you're Golden State.
Yeah, Golden State can do that. They have 4 studs. Houston, it's James Harden. He's a one-man band. Last night, that was like watching old school Batman with Adam West take on the Joker, the Penguin, and all his bullies. That's what it was like. And so James Harden really can't afford to sit out games, or he can't afford to have low usage, because do you want Daniel House creating his own shots? No. Do you want to give Gerald Green the ball 15, 17 times a game? No. You want the ball in James Harden's hands. With Chris Paul out, they have to give him high usage. Will he do it in the playoffs? I don't know. But James Harden we might be witnessing the greatest regular season run in a 2 to 3 year span that we've ever seen from the 2-guard position.
And I totally agree. I think the one thing he should do, and he must do, Brendan, to get over that hump in the playoffs, he's going to have to trust his teammates more. And his usage is going to be still the same thing, and you're going to have to empower those guys. Because if they have guys making 13, 14 points from Austin Rivers, Gerald Green has to be consistent. Daniel House has to be consistent. Austin Rivers has to be consistent. If he can get those guys to where they believe and they're going to trust in him, and he does get it off and pass it a lot, just got to make sure they keep making shots, because if they're making shots, you can't double him, and he will have a tough out if he does that.
He has had his playoff faults, and so he's had it's a timeline from OKC up until now where you've looked at him sometimes in the playoffs and you've kind of squinted your eye. But in the regular season, hasn't been too many better than Big Game James these last 3 years. I'm just going to tell you that.
The barber.
Oh, yeah. In the regular season, James Harden, hard to guard that guy.
It's very hard. So let's transition this conversation quickly just into Golden State. Blown out on Christmas Day. They've lost 3 at home now. Just inconsistency that we're not used to seeing over the last 2 months. Your thoughts on the inconsistency?
The one spot we kind of nitpick over the years has been a center spot. But they used to have it done by committee, whether it was Zaza Pachulia, whether it was David West, whether it was JaVale McGee. This is the one area right now they are missing the young guy Damian Jones, where they don't have a lot of guys in that middle, and they're starting to play small ball, and it's catching up to them. They are missing Boogie Cousins, and they also missing Damian Jones. In my opinion, that's the one area where they're also not as good, and I think also they've been to the playoffs and the finals 4 years. It's just got to wait. They're going to be measured by playoffs versus regular season.
I think it's the combination of the 2 things you just said. I think it's, first of all, the 5 spot is a sore spot for them. The boogeyman is coming, and they need him. JaVale McGee was big for this team last year, especially in the playoffs. They don't have him right now. Draymond Green has not played well. That's something that you have to talk about. But then when you look at the Bulls and their 2 3-peats, the last year on those 3-peats were the years they won the least amount of games in the regular season. And that just comes because when you go on those runs, it just wears on you. It wears on you physically, it wears on you mentally. And sometimes the Golden State Warriors probably don't come out with the right mindset for certain regular season games. But best believe you me, when the playoffs start, they'll be there.
All right, guys, we have a lot of other games to get to, mostly tonight's games now that we've
Tonight's game. We're gonna
recapped
talk
the
about
highlights.
tonight's
I know,
game.
right?
Okay.
Do we have to move on? They better be as good as Thursday night. I don't think so.
I love this.
Grizzlies getting ready to take on the Nets. A little pregame photo action going on.
Hey, Grizzlies got a lot of fight in them. They're going to come out fighting tonight.
Selfie. We'll talk Grizzlies
They're a
and
little
Nets
handsy over
coming
Yeah.
up after
Hey, the Grizzlies got a lot of fight in that